My name is Claire, and at 28 years old, I never thought my biggest challenge would come from my own family. For 5 years, I rented my parents' investment apartment, always paying on time, always responsible. I built my career, stayed independent, and never once asked for handouts. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. That stability shattered the day my older brother, Daniel, and his family crashed into my life. Daniel was 33, unemployed, and married to Sarah, a woman who seemed permanently exhausted. They had 2 kids, Noah, 7, and Emma, 4, who were innocent enough, but chaotic. When they moved into my 2-bedroom apartment without asking, my mother, Linda, dropped the real bombshell. I would now have to pay double rent. Why? Because, according to her, housing her favorite son and his family was a privilege. Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. I had worked my entire life to be self-sufficient, yet here I was, treated like a never-ending ATM for my family's bad decisions. But what my mother didn't know was that I had a plan, one that would flip the entire situation on its head. I wasn't born into money or privilege. Everything I had, I earned. While most people my age partied through college, I worked late night, shifts at the library, and weekends at a cafe. My hard work paid off. I graduated with a 3.8 GPA and minimal student loans, thanks to scholarships and my relentless determination. After graduation, I landed an entry-level job at a marketing firm. It wasn't glamorous, but I pushed myself, taking projects no one else wanted, staying late when others went home, and saying yes to every challenge. 4 years later, I had risen to the role of marketing specialist. I wasn't rich, but I had security, and that meant everything. My relationship with my parents, Linda and Thomas, was functional but emotionally distant. They praised Daniel for the smallest achievements, while my milestones were quietly acknowledged and quickly forgotten. Still, I thought I had earned their respect. Renting their property felt like proof that I could be independent yet connected. I poured my heart into that apartment, painting walls, replacing fixtures, and transforming a dull beige box into a cozy home. Little did I know my efforts would soon be trampled by the chaos Daniel brought with him. 5 years ago, when I was just starting my career, my parents offered me their small 2-bedroom investment property at a slightly discounted rent. It wasn't much of a gift, more of a business deal. The place was outdated, but I agreed to handle repairs and upgrades in exchange for the lower price. I poured every weekend into making that apartment livable. I painted over the dull beige walls, added light fixtures to brighten the rooms, and even replaced the kitchen hardware myself. Slowly, the place transformed from a lifeless rental into a warm personal home. Every month without fail, my rent hit their account on the 1st. If something broke, I either fixed it or paid for the materials, only asking my parents to cover labor. I was, by every definition, the perfect tenant. My parents often told me how lucky they were to have me there, at least until Daniel entered the picture. Daniel had a reputation for draining every resource he touched. I should have known the moment I heard his name again in family conversations. My peace was about to vanish. Daniel, my older brother, had always been the family's favorite, even if he didn't deserve it. He bounced between 3 universities, never finishing a degree. He took job after job, quitting as soon as it became difficult. According to him, every boss was unfair, every schedule impossible, every task beneath him. Despite his failures, my mother adored him. She praised his charm, his big dreams, and his potential that somehow never turned into results. My father, Thomas, stayed quiet, rarely challenging my mother's favoritism. Daniel married Sarah, a kind but weary woman who once worked as a substitute teacher. She quit when Noah was born, and by the time Emma arrived, she seemed more tired than ever. Sarah loved her children, but she was stretched thin, carrying the emotional weight Daniel never picked up. Meanwhile, I was the reliable one, the one who paid bills, built a career, and lived responsibly. Yet to my parents, Daniel could do no wrong. That favoritism had always stung, but I never thought it would invade my personal life. Until the day my brother, his wife, and their kids showed up on my doorstep. It happened on a Tuesday evening. I came home from work, exhausted from back-to-back meetings, only to find Daniel and his family already inside my apartment. Boxes were scattered across the living room. Toys spilled across the floor, and Sarah sat on the couch looking apologetic. Surprise! Daniel grinned as if I should be thrilled. My mother, Linda, appeared from the hallway. Claire, this is temporary. They just need a place until things get better. I froze. Temporary. My apartment was my sanctuary, my hard-earned home, and now, without warning, it was a shelter for freeloaders. The noise level tripled overnight. Noah's toys clattered non-stop. Emma cried for attention, and Daniel treated the place like his personal lounge. He left dishes in the sink, sprawled across the couch, and laughed loudly while playing video games. I tried to hold my ground, but my mother quickly made it clear. This wasn't a request. Daniel was staying. Sarah whispered apologies when no one else was around, but it didn't change the fact. I was losing control of my life, inside my own home. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my mother called me into the kitchen one evening. She sat at the table, her arms folded, with that look of authority she always used when I was a child. Claire, she said, since Daniel and his family are living here, you'll need to start paying double rent. It's only fair. You earn more than he does. I blinked in disbelief. Double? Mom, I already pay on time every month. Why should I cover for Daniel's choices? Her eyes hardened. Because you can afford it. Daniel is going through a hard time, and as his sister, you should help. Besides, you're lucky to have this apartment. Think of it as a privilege. A privilege. My own mother was charging me extra to house her favorite child, turning my sacrifices into punishment. I felt anger burning inside me, but I kept my face calm. I agreed with a quiet nod. But in that moment, something shifted. If my family saw me as a cash cow, I would no longer play the obedient daughter. They thought they had me trapped. But I had my own plan forming. Living with Daniel was a daily test of patience. He slept until noon, spent hours on video games, and left messes wherever he went. Sarah tried to manage the kids, but even she looked drained and overwhelmed. The apartment I had built with love became unrecognizable, cluttered, noisy, suffocating. Every night I lay awake, listening to the chaos around me. I wasn't just paying for my home anymore. I was paying for Daniel's laziness. My mother's voice echoed in my head. It's only fair. At work, my colleagues noticed I was quieter, more withdrawn. The pressure of double rent and a hijacked apartment was weighing on me. But behind my silence, I was strategizing. I started documenting everything. Photos of the mess, records of conversations, bank transfers. If my parents wanted to treat this like a business arrangement, I would play along. But this time, on my terms, I realized something powerful. I wasn't the helpless daughter they assumed I was. I was a professional woman with resources, allies, and leverage. The cracks in my family's control were starting to show, and soon I would break free. The more unbearable life became, the clearer my plan grew. I couldn't simply run. That would mean leaving behind years of hard work I had put into this apartment. No, I needed to turn the tables. I started reaching out to contacts in real estate. asking subtle questions about rental agreements, subleasing rights, and eviction processes. To my surprise, I discovered something valuable. Because my name was on the lease, I had far more authority than my parents realized. Meanwhile, I acted compliant. To my mother, I was the dutiful daughter who paid double rent without complaint. To Daniel, I was the pushover sister who tolerated his freeloading. In reality, I was quietly pulling strings. At night, I drafted plans. How to legally remove them, how to secure my independence, and how to reclaim the peace I had built. Every time I heard Daniel laugh at another job he quit, or my mother lecture me about family duty, my resolve hardened. They saw me as a source of money. What they didn't know was that I was preparing to turn their greed into their downfall. Before executing my plan, I wanted to see just how much my family would exploit me. One weekend, I told my mother I might need to cut back on work hours. Her reaction was immediate. "Absolutely not," she snapped. "You can't slack off when Daniel needs help. You're the one with stability, Claire. He needs you right now." Her words confirmed what I suspected. They had no intention of letting me breathe. To them, my life existed to cushion Daniel's failures. That same evening, Daniel joked about quitting another short-lived freelance gig. "Why bother when Claire's covering everything?" He laughed. Sarah lowered her eyes, embarrassed, but said nothing. That was the moment I knew. I didn't just need to escape. I needed to make a statement. If I left quietly, they'd twist the story, painting me as selfish. But if I revealed the truth, I could finally show everyone who the real leech was. The boundaries were clear now. My family had no limits when it came to using me, which meant I no longer had limits in how I would respond. Over the next month, I set my plan in motion. I spoke to a lawyer, carefully explaining the situation. With the lease in my name, Daniel and his family had no legal right to stay without my permission. My mother's demands held no weight on paper. At work, I secured a raise I hadn't told anyone about. My income gave me leverage I intended to use. Then, I started quietly removing my valuables from the apartment, storing them at a friend's place. I didn't want to risk anything when the confrontation came. Finally, I drafted a formal notice. It was clear, legal, and undeniable. Daniel and his family had 30 days to vacate the apartment. The day I printed that notice, I felt a calm determination wash over me. For years, I had played the role of the obedient daughter, but now I was ready to reclaim my power. They thought they could trap me with guilt and obligation. Instead, I was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. I gathered my courage and called a family meeting. Daniel slouched on the couch. Sarah hovered nervously, and my parents sat at the table, expectant. I placed the notice in the center. "Daniel, Sarah, you have 30 days to move out. Legally, this apartment is mine. You have no right to stay here without my permission." Daniel scoffed. "You can't kick out family." My mother's face turned red. "Claire, how dare you? After everything we've done for you." I cut her off. "Everything you've done for me. I've paid rent every month, improved this apartment, and respected our agreement. Meanwhile, you've treated me like a bank account while excusing Daniel's irresponsibility." Enough is enough. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't protest. Deep down, she knew the truth. For once, my father spoke up quietly. "Linda, she's right. This isn't fair." The room fell silent. My mother looked betrayed. Daniel looked furious, but I felt lighter than I had in years. The battle wasn't over yet, but the first blow had been struck. The weeks that followed were tense. My mother tried guilt, anger, even manipulation, but I stood firm. Every attempt only pushed me further away from her control. Daniel protested loudly at first, but when he realized the law was on my side, his bravado crumbled. 30 days later, the apartment was mine again. The silence felt strange at first, but it was a silence filled with peace, not chaos. I redecorated, reclaiming every corner that had been overrun. More importantly, I reclaimed myself. I was no longer the cash cow daughter. I was Claire, the woman who refused to be used. My parents' calls became less frequent. My relationship with them may never fully recover, but for the first time, I didn't feel guilty about it. I had given enough. As I sat in my living room one evening, sipping tea, I smiled to myself. They thought I was trapped. They thought I would always be the obedient daughter. But I had turned the tables, and for the first time in my life, I was free.